was cruising down the Jersey Turnpike, and then all of a sudden I found myself in shock and awe. The most improper, offending, and morally wrong billboard that I've seen in a while. It's shocking that society even allows such billboards. And I was thinking to myself afterwards, what am I supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? You can't not look where you're driving. You can't put your head down. You try to have tunnel vision and keep your eyes on the road, but at times you just feel like an ones, like you can't even be blamed. It's at this time of the year that the Kabbalists teach that it's a time to rectify sins of the lewd nature. In 2023, the reality is that the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, has shown his hand. He has chosen in which areas he's going to attack Klal Yisrael. He's removed the guidelines of basic decency, and he continues his onslaught and attacks towards the Jewish people in the world of arayos, promiscuity. But the good news is that he's shown his hand. He has told us where he's going to attack. And now it's our job to fight back. Maybe you've heard the word Shovavim before, or maybe you haven't. What Shovavim is an acronym. An acronym that stands for Shemos Va'eraboy B'Shalach Yisro and Mishpatim. The Parshios in which the Arizal writes in his Perush al HaTorah, which you'll find in the Be'er Hativ in Hilchas Daled Parshios, that Shiyomim Misugalim Latakin Avon Hakeri Yoser Mikol Hashana. These days are special to work on these areas of purity. Some people fast. It is not the contemporary minhag to fast, but the custom is to do tshuva specifically in the world of arayos. Shovavim is actually also a word in a pasuk of Yirmiyah. The prophet there says, Shuvu banim shovavim, return, O mischief makers. There's even a sefer that's been written about all the different customs and practices of Shovavim that came out in 1724 called Torah Yesharim. And you can figure out more details about this time by reading that sefer. In today's Torah podcast, I want to highlight one important idea on the topic of Shovavim that we see in our parsha, and then end with practical advice to strengthen ourselves that I heard from an Adam Gadol, a great man. So let us begin. Sefer Shemos tells us, we are no longer a small family of Yaakov, but we are a burgeoning nation. We are now Bnei Yisrael. Pasuk Beis continues, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulun, and Binyamin. These are the tribes of Yaakov that came down to Egypt. Dan, V'Naftali, Gad, V'Asher. And the psukim finish, Vayihi kol nefesh yotze yerech Yaakov shivim nefesh. And it was all of the soul that came out of Yaakov was 70 soul. And the commentators point out that we are all one soul. It is singular. And that 70 number encompasses all of Yaakov's children. But there's 3 more words of the pasuk that are sticking out. The pasuk finishes, V'Yosef haya b'Mitzrayim. And Yosef was in Egypt. Now Rashi wants to know, number 1, isn't he included in the 70 count? And secondly, don't I already know that he's in Egypt? V'chilo hayinu yoidim shehu haya b'Mitzrayim? So what is the pasuk telling me? Says Rashi, Yosef. This teaches us the righteousness of Joseph. Hu Yosef haroa est son aviv. He was Yosef that was shepherding the flock of his father. Hu Yosef shahaya b'Mitzrayim v'das melech v'omed b'tzidko. And this is the same Yosef who rose to power in a country so morally corrupt with everything at his fingertips. And he was the same Yosef. That's what the pasuk is telling us when it says, and Joseph was in Egypt. He hasn't given an inch. Now, we know Chazal don't exaggerate. These words cannot be believed. I imagine that when I was a teenager with acne and braces, learning privately alone with my Rebbe in my yeshiva days, things were good, things were peaceful. But if I was shipped off, or I had taken a job in England to work in politics, and then I rose to power, I don't mean to suggest that the country is inappropriate at all. I just mean to pick a mushal that is a faraway land. And I can do whatever I want, and I'm alone. And I am the exact same pure yeshiva bacher after all of that. But that's what these words say. Hu Yosef havroa es son aviv, hu Yosef shehaya b'Mitzrayim v'nasa melech v'aviv b'tzidko. Ve'eich yitachin, how is it possible? Now, there's an amazing Medrash in Shir Hashirim in Perek Ches. It's discussing the pasuk that says like this: Achois lanu ketana v'shadayim ein lo, manasa la'achosenu bayom she'edubar bo. Translation: we have a little sister, but she cannot nurse. What shall we do for our sister on the day that she will be spoken of? The psukim continue. Im choyma hi nivne aleha tiras kesef. If she will be a wall, then we will build upon her a turret of silver. V'im delas hi, but if she is a door, natzur aleha luach arez. We will enclose her with cedar panel. Finishes the psukim. Ani choyma v'shadai k'migdalos, oz hayinu be'enav k'motzei shalom. I am a wall, and my chest is a tower. Then I am in his eyes like one who found peace. Who is this little sister that we're referring to? What does it mean that if she will be like a wall, then things will be peaceful? But if she will be like a doorway, then things won't work out. Says the Medrash, Rabbi Yochanan Pasak Roy B'Stoim B'Yisrael. This is actually referring to the comparison between Sodom and Yisrael. That Achos Lanu Ketana, that this young sister, that's referring to Sodom. She cannot nurture, she cannot nurse, because Shelo Heinika mitzvos u'maisim tovim. They have no good deeds and no mitzvos. Manasa la'achosenu. So what are we supposed to do? What should we do for our sister? Says the Medrash, there's nothing to do. Manasa bayom shegazer beis and shalmayel shitar beish. They ended up being destroyed. But im chayma hi nivne. But if you will be a wall, elu Yisrael. Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Imma Amidin Yisrael, if the Jews will uphold Ma'aseyim, their actions, their mitzvos, Kachoma, like a wall, then Nivna Aleim and Atzileim. Then they will build, and they will be saved. V'im delasi, but if they will vacillate, if they will swing, Im metaltalan hein devreim kedelazu, if their actions will not withstand the test of time, then Natsur Aleha Luach Arez. Then they too will not withstand the test of time. Amazing. There are two different approaches to mitzvos. You can do mitzvos when things are easy, but if a person is unable to keep it going when it doesn't work, when it's hard, well, then it seems like it won't endure. And Klal Yisrael won't find shalom. But im choymahi, if you will be an ironclad filibuster, unyielding, unbreakable, well, then there is nothing greater than that. The Yetzer Hara, the Satan, has shown his hand and has punched us. It is now time that we stand up. We step up to the plate. We gird ourselves and turn into a wall. To add some context to this, I'd like to draw upon American history, a famous episode that may help us to understand what it means to be a wall. And while comparing divine matters to earthly matters, I still believe that this story will aid us in what the Medrash is trying to explain. When the Civil War broke out, there was a general in the Confederate Army, and his name was Thomas Jackson. And it was at the Battle of Bull Run in Virginia, when, with all the gunfire and confusion of the battle, a general looked over and saw Thomas Jackson standing there in the middle of the battlefield. While others were retreating, he would not move. His soldiers were inspired by his stubborn courage, and the general exclaimed, "Look at Jackson, standing there like a stone wall." That person became General Stonewall Jackson, a famous general, probably only second in his fame to Robert E. Lee, but helped the South during the Civil War. We must become a wall. We must not retreat. We must have stubborn courage. We are most definitely in the middle of a war. We must be a chayma. I hope that when I leave this earth after 120, that my gravestone should read, "Here lies Rabbi Michael Stonewall Brook, a man who stood up for what he believed in, had stubborn courage, and became Ani Chayma, I am a wall." I have no doubt that when Rabbi Yerucham says that after a person dies, there will be a jury that judges a person in heaven. There will be God with righteous ones sitting on the bench. Hashem will turn to the jurors and say, "So what do we think of this individual? Does he deserve to get into heaven?" Now, those righteous ones, says Rabbi Yerucham, they are people from our generation, people from the generation that the deceased lived in. It cannot be someone from an earlier generation, for they didn't have the same challenges of this person. Now, I'd bet my last dollar that Rabbi Daniel Gladstein will be on that jury. A walking Sefer Torah, someone who epitomizes being a light unto the nations, and he's doing it in our generation. Recently, when he was giving a class about Shovavim, this topic, he gave a piece of advice, citing a Radvaz and a Mechtam Elio, Reb Elio Dessler. He said that the more you just say no, 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 the more the Yetzer Hara says yes, yes, yes. He says, do this aver, you say no, and he doesn't stop there. And he gives a piece of advice. When you say no, and the Yetzer Hara says yes, bribe him. Use shochad l'satan. Tell the Yetzer Hara, oh, you want me to do that sin? Okay, I'm on your team. Sure, I'll do it. Just give me a minute. I'll get the next one. You show me that billboard? There's a million billboards. I agree to you. Yes, you win. I lose. The next billboard, I got you. I'm going to look. But for now, give me a minute. I'm busy with something. A psychological ploy to fight back. It is aleinu. It is upon us to come up with strategies to fight back. Building a wall and becoming a wall means to do whatever it takes to fight back and to not give up an inch. We have 6 weeks here to rectify previous sins, an auspicious time for tshuva. And to conclude, there's an old adage, an old question that says, well, what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? And that's how sometimes our battle with the Yetzer Hara can feel. I want to be strong, I want to be an immovable object, but he is just an unstoppable force. If we can become a wall, if we can become an ironclad, rock-solid cement wall, well, then we will see that he is not an unstoppable force. He will melt and he will crumble. Learn from Yosef HaTzadik. You can be surrounded by immorality, but if you can nickname yourself Stonewall, Ani Chayma, then Az Hayisa Be'enav K'Motzei Shalom. Then I am in his eyes like the one who found peace.